January 3.
Oh. Okay.
That's when it has.
Oh yeah, Michelle's here.
You're ready when you are.
Like 10 minutes. I know.
Go ahead.
Okay. Our project is about the effects of ISIS and the warfare on Iraq by me, Micah, Amaris, and Sarah. Okay, so Iraq is a country located in the Middle East, bordered by Saudi Arabia, Syria, Iran, and many others. In 1920, they became independent from Britain and the Ottoman Empire. And one thing I want to mention is on Google Maps, I wasn't able, that icon, to put it on there to like see the environment. I wasn't able to go on there, so it's just something to highlight, like you can go and see what's going on in the environment. Okay, so why does Iraq matter and why are we talking about it? It matters because it's a source of income. Oil is, as the U.S., we're very dependent on oil. Over 263 million out of 329.7 million people in the U.S. depend on oil for their automobiles to operate on oil. Yeah. Okay.
Alright, so who is ISIS? ISIS is an extremist group that inflicts violence upon many countries in the Middle East, and it originated in 2004.
Okay, so definitions, this is my definition, diversification. So diversification is the expansion of varying products. So for Iraq, their product is primarily based, well, their income is primarily based on oil, and they need to expand on it to build in their income, to expand their economy.
And depleted uranium is uranium containing a smaller portion of the isotope uranium-235. But basically, it's just a chemical that is used in anti-tank weapons and other armaments.
Indoctrination is the process of teaching a person or group to accept a set of beliefs uncritically.
Extremism is holding extreme political or religious views.
Okay.
Sure. So our team question was, how do ISIS and warfare affect Iraq?
Okay, so mine was economical standpoint, and mine was the account ISIS inflicting violence on Iraq has caused the economy to fall into a deficit. So due to this, the economy has crashed in a way.
From an environmental standpoint, the wars in Iraq have caused detrimental damage to the environment due to radioactive contamination, intentional crop fires, and polluted freshwater sources.
From an educational standpoint, Iraq forces students to learn and teachers to teach kids about their dangerous views.
And then from a social and scientific standpoint, ISIS and warfare cause children to suffer from health problems, mental and physical.
Okay, so the economy. So this is mine. So, So even though I said it's based on the violence that ISIS has inflicted, it also goes with, yeah. So it also goes with them just coming in and corrupting their economy. So daily, ever since ISIS reached its peak in 2014 to 2017, they have accumulated $1 million from Iraq alone in oil, and that is something that they could use for people, like people living in shacks made of metals stacked up on each other, and people in poverty. And as well as they also plundered a lot of Mosul banks. Over $426 million they've taken from banks, which can be used for something else.
No. Over the years, Iraq has been faced with many war-related conflicts that have impacted the stability of the country's environment, and this is because of like a whole bunch of things, but one of the main stuff is like radioactive contamination, intentional crop fires, and polluted freshwater sources. So Radioactive contamination has been one of the biggest factors that have contributed to the detrimental damage found in Iraq. More than 40 sites across Iraq are contaminated with high levels of radiation and dioxins. And scrap sites found all over Iraq are in prime concern due to it being open for scavengers and children just to explore and walk around, which could potentially harm them in many ways. And one of the main chemicals causing this great amount of damage is depleted uranium. Depleted uranium is considered the most effective warhead for penetrating enemy tanks. And the wind can transport the depleted uranium all over the country, and this could cause people to get really sick because inhaling the chemical could cause lung cancer, kidney damage, and birth defects. The uranium has made its way into the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, which are Iraq's main water sources, and has caused even more damage. Iraq's freshwater fish are now the most endangered group of species in the entire country. Massive amounts of dead carp have been found floating in the rivers or washed up on banks. The mass death caused farm owners and fishermen to struggle to find ways to continue to use the resources that the freshwater offers. Consuming any water or like any animals that are living in it puts people in risk of disease, and fish have been banned from being sold due to fear of infection after consumption. Intentional crop fires set by those fighting the wars are destroying everything that the people actively living in Iraq need in their everyday lives. Crops are being set to cause damage, to like scare off the other people that they are having wars with, and thousands of acres of wheat and barley fields have been scorched by fires during harvest season. Now, because of that, farmers have only been suffering during this time because they no longer have the resources to sell to everyone to make a living for themselves. And this is a picture of what it looks like after the fires. So just like to summarize everything, the back-to-back warfare in Iraq has not given the environment and ecosystems a chance to replenish itself. So wildlife sightings are becoming like very rare, and there's no more animals to like provide a source of food for everyone. And Iraqi citizens are no longer able to make a living for themselves because of like the fires and everything are destroying the stuff that they need to make what they need to survive and stuff. And there are no more sources of fresh water, so people risk getting disease every day. And people who are living in poverty can't afford to buy water bottles, which is the only source of real clean water in the country. And the only way to fix these problems is to either like control the warfare so that more areas around the battlefield are not like destroyed, and another way is to find a way to end the back-to-back wars.
So I focused on how ISIS and warfare affect the children's health. So the presence of ISIS and warfare in Iraq caused many health problems in children. Many of these problems are effects from ISIS recruiting children by torturing them. Another way that children are affected by ISIS is that there is a lack of education and normal life opportunities. Some of the most common health problems that these children have now are anxiety, depression, PTSD, which is post-traumatic stress disorder, mood/behavioral problems, and malnutrition. ISIS uses brutal methods to recruit children. They physically torture them by forcing them to undergo very intense physical training, and they harm them if they refuse to join or if they fight back. In an interview by the PBS Frontline newspaper, a 14-year-old boy told his story about escaping the recruiters. He said that because he refused to join, they tortured him by cutting off one of his hands and one of his feet, which left him permanently injured. ISIS recruiters also make threats towards the parents of the children they want to recruit, which further makes them want to join ISIS. Lastly, they force them to watch videos of other younger children completing suicide missions and going through the intense training. Researchers from the Center for Peace Studies at McMaster University say that all children need care, attention, and empathy, which there is a lack of due to the deaths of many parents and parents' prioritization of safety over care for their children. Also, due to large amount of involvement of children in ISIS, there is a low attendance rate of children in school, which can lead to lower IQs and a higher involvement in child labor, child abuse, and early marriage. The presence of war also leads to unsafe neighborhoods, which means that children are not able to play outside and interact with each other. These factors are what lead to health problems in children such as anxiety, malnutrition, depression, PTSD, behavioral problems, and low IQs. These issues would take many years to solve, but researchers have provided multiple solutions. Some of these solutions include rehabilitation efforts for children affected by the wars, including children's interest in peace agreements with Iraq, implementing an international humanitarian law about the protection of children in countries at war, and Americans and any other countries other than Iraq can help by donating to organizations that are bringing medical supplies and food to Iraq.
Okay, ISIS and children's education. ISIS has messed with children's education in the following ways. One, they have bombed multiple schools and libraries and set up camp in them. They would usually also put traps in them too to make them dangerous, like bear traps, glue traps, and tripwires. Second point is they force students and teachers to learn and teach about violence and religious extremism. And when they did that, they would usually teach them about learning how to use bombs, construct guns, all that bad stuff. And if they did not comply, they would either torture and or kill them. And point number 3, it has caused kids not to be accepted in school because of their parents' past affiliation with them. What I mean by this is some parents may have joined ISIS and have somehow left, and that has affected their kids because they don't have any civil documentations like birth certificate, marriage certificate, police records, or anything, so they can't fully enroll their kids into them. And the kids also, because of this, have faced some type of discrimination, like, discrimination. And because most of these points, some parents have been afraid to let their kids go to school, and they have been out of school for weeks going on to months.
So, in conclusion, presence of ISIS and warfare in Iraq causes health problems in children,
Economic deficit.
Environmental damage.
And decline in education.
Okay, solution. Okay, so al-Baghdadi is currently dead. What does that mean for Iraq now? So for ISIS. For ISIS does not change because there's a new successor. It came out like 2 days ago, I believe. His name is al-Qurasi. I don't know, I'm butchering his name. But there's a new successor, so ISIS is not going nowhere. It's still going to be here. So it's really, as a solution, it's nothing really that we could do. Some may say that we could go to war with ISIS, but that will also, in a way, damage the United States, and that will put us at harm. And also with that, none of these things will change. The children will still have mental and physical illnesses. The environment will still be damaged. The infrastructure will still be damaged. Nothing will change. And So, and one thing, do we really need their oil? So as technology advances, we eventually won't need their oil because artificial oil is currently advancing and it's in the making. And we also use that now. So in coming years, I don't think we will need their oil, but currently we do need their oil. So yeah.
And just to add to that, There are smaller solutions to fix our individual problems, but ISIS as a whole, there's not a lot that we can do right now. But in the future, there could be more.
Excellent. And I'm just going to give you the questions written